been asked to be the spokesman in saying a word of introduction to what you're about to see. So far as possible, the editors have made it an account of the really important men in this campaign. I mean the enlisted soldiers, sailors, and airmen that fought through every obstacle to victory.
Our sons this day have set upon a mighty endeavor to set free a suffering humanity.
To wage war against a monstrous tyranny.
You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months.
Their road will be long and hard, for the enemy is strong. He may hurl back our forces, but we shall return again and again.
We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight in the fields and in the streets.
The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you.
The struggle to preserve our republic and our civilization.
The free men of the world are marching together to victory.
They will be sore tried without rest until the victory is won.
Victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror.
Good evening, I'm Jed Bold at historic Fort Douglas in Salt Lake City. Whether they were drafted or enlisted, many of Utah's World War II veterans started their journey in the military right here. They didn't fight just to save America, they fought to save the entire world. Now, the ones that are still with us are eager for what Utah Honor Flight has to offer, a free trip to Washington, D.C. to see the World War II Memorial. Tonight we follow some of our local veterans on this journey, a journey one veteran referred to as one last day in the sun. Visiting the World War II Memorial is something that most of them never got a chance to do. It's the last piece of a puzzle that they started 70 years ago.
Der Führer und auf ihren Schultern tragen den deutschen Staat, das Deutsche Reich.
A lot of his doctrine in the beginning sounded really good.
They were far ahead in their military.
I never could understand how intelligent people would follow him, but they were doing it.
He started being more aggressive. In 3 months, he'd taken all those surrounding countries.
I mean, he just took one at a time.
There was virtually no fighting. He just sent his troops in.
I grew up hating Hitler, and we had no idea what he had really done to those people. I don't say he's an animal, but I guess I thought it was psychotic.
We didn't want to go to war.
There was no war. We just got through the war. The U.S. was way, way down when World War II broke out. We had the smallest armies almost in the world.
You heard about it. You read the news. But it wasn't happening to us.
We're willing to help, but we don't want to put feet on the ground. Japan felt isolated because World War II, Europe, and Hitler, at that point in time, they weren't even in the picture. They had invaded northern China. The war was everywhere in those islands.
We should have known, had some clue that they were going to come in and do something.
Totally in secrecy, they attacked Pearl Harbor that Sunday. A surprise, unprovoked attack was shocking to the people.
Our military wasn't training to go to combat until the explosion.
Oh, by the droves, by the droves.
As fast as they could.
There's your patriotism coming back just overnight. Lines in all the cities of the young men going to volunteer.
17 years old.
Never been away from Utah, really.
I told my dad I wanted to go.
Our whole soul wouldn't have let us not do what we did.
He doesn't drive anymore. One of the concessions was that I'd take him wherever he needed to go.
Once a month,
Hope they have red roses.
Hope they have roses today.
Yvonne Bennett takes her father shopping.
They have red roses. I can see them.
Even after 64 years of marriage, Mark Barrett simply has to pick up some flowers for his wife.
They should be all right.
To him, this choice isn't any more difficult than the one he made back when he was a teenager.
I was in my last year of high school, and I received a letter from Uncle Sam telling me to report to Fort Douglas, and we could put in a request for which branch of service we want. So I told him I'd like to have the Navy. My rationale in my youth was I figured if I had a good bed, it was going to be a clean one. If I was in the Army, I may not have a bed to sleep in.
But having a clean bed certainly did not mean he was out of harm's way. Barrett was sent to the Pacific, to Okinawa. Often referred to as the last stand of the Japanese military, it was the site of some of the fiercest fighting of the entire war.
Our job was to intercept the kamikaze suicide planes coming in. 2 of the 8 ships in our squadron were hit the first week we were up there. The class of destroyer we were on, there were 2 smokestacks. The kamikaze one hit had sheared off the second stack completely and had killed 100 men on that ship. The pilot was thrown out of the plane and he landed dressed in his ceremonial robes, lazing on the deck of the destroyer.
Unlike so many others, Barrett made it home. And like so many others, he did so with little fanfare. He met a girl at BYU, got married, and found a job in the agriculture business, even managing farms for the LDS Church. He and his wife raised 7 children together. But there was something missing. That's when his daughter heard about the honor flight.
The men in that generation, they went to war because that's what you did. And when they came home, they just came home and resumed their lives. They didn't get the recognition that servicemen get today.
Yvonne filled out the application, and one day the phone rang.
When they said, "Are you still interested?" I squealed and I said, "Yes, yes."
Once a month, just a few blocks from Barrett's childhood home where he received his draft notice, on the street that still bears his family name, once a month, Yvonne takes her father to visit her mother.
And she was a wonderful wife, a wonderful mother to our children.
This is what Dad always brought to Mom when she was alive. Red roses was her favorite.
It's always a sentimental and thought-filled time for me because I remember the many good times we've had together.
Mark lives alone now. For him, the honor flight is a chance to remember the days of his youth and a chance to know he made a difference.
I wanted him to know that America appreciates what he and all those millions of other soldiers did.
Oh, your mother's enjoying them.
They'll enjoy him.
After Normandy, we went back to England and we jumped in Holland. This hat I got over in the Battle of the Bulge. I took this off a German prisoner, and I've had it for 70 years.
Memories flow freely for Jack Hansen.
It's Springfield, 1811.
He enlisted in the Army at Fort Douglas, and like many others, was given a choice.
Anybody want to go in the paratroops? And I had my hand up just a little ways, and they said, "There's one, get him."
Danger was part of the job, resulting in an extra $50 a month, a lot of money back then, and a tempting proposition for Hansen. He became an elite, highly trained soldier as part of the famed 101st Airborne Division. Leaping out of planes and dropping in behind enemy lines was all in a day's work.
Paratroopers are real, kind of like the Marines, real proud, you know.
The life of a paratrooper would be a challenge for anyone, and even more for Hansen.
Well, especially when you're scared of heights.
Combat was a constant for Hansen. France, Holland, Belgium, Austria, Germany. He and his fellow soldiers crisscrossed Europe. Those memories have lasted a lifetime, especially those of the Battle of the Bulge.
We had no winter clothes. I finally got a pair of boots off a dead guy, put straw in them. A lot of guys were getting trench foot.
The Bulge was Germany's last big offensive of the war. The Nazis drove back American forces, leaving Hansen and his unit cut off and surrounded.
So miserable and cold. They're shelling us all the time.
The Bulge and other battles with the Germans proved deadly for many of Hansen's friends.
We lost more than half of our company.
The combat and the despair brought Hansen and his fellow soldiers even closer, as did the happier times.
We were some of the first ones there to Hitler's hideout.
Also known as the Eagle's Nest, Hansen paid a visit to Adolf Hitler's mountaintop hideaway.
Some of the guys had some of their silverware, I had his phone for a while until I lost it, and a broom I took just for the fun of it.
The bonds Hansen forged with his brothers in arms through good times and bad never failed.
Oh, just like brothers, even more so than brothers.
Hansen kept up with his comrades over the years, even getting together for reunions long after they'd defeated the Nazis.
This is a catalog of the veterans that were still alive in 1993.
But time accomplished what the war could not.
All my friends in F Company, and they're all gone now.
To his son, the honor flight presents a chance to reinforce his dad's old memories, which have almost started to feel like they belong to someone else.
I don't think he realizes what he actually did, you know. I know he did when he was younger, but now that he's older, like he says, it's just a dream to him, you know. It seems like it's so long ago it never happened.
And hopefully the honor flight will create some new bonds with those who shared many of the same experiences. New bonds to help replace those he's lost.
Like he says, all his friends now, that's where he wants to see his friends, he has to go to the cemetery.
They promised to stay out.
Don Pickett opens the door to the view from his balcony.
I see heaven on earth. It's the most wonderful view to end my life.
Don says his memory is nearly perfect. The view in his mind is very different from the one in front of his eyes.
Almost all of these buildings, they're all new.
93 years of memories is a lot to live with. The past lies behind every door, especially memories of command, memories of Europe, memories of war. Don Pickett.
Lieutenant Pickett.
Responsible for an armored platoon.
50 men.
For Don, the war seems like it just happened yesterday. But for everyone he knows, even his own family, those memories sit in darkness.
When we were young, my father did not talk about the war. He got on with business, and even though he brought back tokens of the war, his helmet, and we played Army, he didn't talk about it.
In many ways, Don was a stranger to his own family.
I know this was a huge part of his life, not in years, but emotionally.
There are things I know and have experienced, but I haven't told them yet.
If you were sad about it, or if you needed to talk about it, that was not the culture then. If you were having emotional problems as a man in the 1940s and 1950s, that was not acceptable. You just kept them to yourself.
Don's daughter knows that after 93 years, her dad's time is running short. For her, the honor flight is a key, a last-ditch attempt to unlock her father's past and open the door to a man she's never had the chance to know. Many of Utah's World War II veterans ended their journey right here, beneath the headstones in the Fort Douglas Cemetery. The World War II memorial was not dedicated until 2006, and by that time, so many of the veterans had already passed away, while others were either too infirm or couldn't visit for other reasons. Nationally, World War II veterans are dying at a rate of more than 500 a day. Here in Utah, there are only about 8,000 left. That's why Utah Honor Flight spends thousands of volunteer hours to get every detail just right. For many of us, the World War II Memorial is a monument to the sacrifices of an entire generation. But for these World War II veterans, the connection that they feel is indescribable. In the back of an auto repair shop in Richfield,
I'm calling about your dad's application.
The work to get these veterans to Washington never stops.
Oh, you will be shocked and surprised.
You got to line up the hotels, you got to line up the flights, you got to line up the buses, and if all the stars align, you can get them all on the same days.
Would you like to be the one to tell your father?
These men and women are not paid for these countless hours, but they know the clock is ticking.
Some veterans have been waiting for months, some have been waiting for years, some aren't here anymore, they've passed away.
Well, and his birthday's coming up, isn't it?
These flights are free for the veterans. Everything is paid for through donations. And while money comes in with every bit of publicity, so do the applications.
We've got to have the donations match these applications, because it would be heartbreaking to say, okay, Sorry.
You can all tell him all together that he has a special birthday present.
Yeah, I think that'll be nice. We're excited. We all will be excited.
As many as 20 applications in a single day, 20 more veterans wanting to see their memorial. These volunteers don't earn anything, at least not in money.
If you didn't have a birthday, it'd have been okay.
Years have dropped from their life.
Take me back to when I was a young man, when I was in the Navy, when I was 18 years old.
Brought memories about my old buddies and wish they could have seen it before they all died.
If you just look at them, you can see in their countenance that they are going back. The wrinkles fall away, the eyes get bright, the memories are right there.
I was gratified to be here this morning. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
It is 5 years and more since Hitler marched into Poland, years full of suffering and death.
I wish that Franklin D. Roosevelt had lived to see this day.
VE Day, victory in Europe.
The unconditional surrender of Japan.
VJ Day, victory in Japan. The world erupted in celebration, but many veterans were still overseas when the war ended. By the time their service was up, they returned to a country trying to move on. A country trying to leave the war in the past.
I know the big cities had those ticker tapes where the troops were marching through the big cities, but I wasn't aware of much happening here.
Parades were already over when we got home.
We were back and we were ready to start our life.
Get a job and go to work.
We came home on the bus with a bag on our back.
We came back on the train. But we did not have any big welcome home party.
The train broke down, so we hitchhiked.
We didn't want to really remember the horror.
Nobody wanted to hear they'd had enough of war.
It was a time of get on with it.
We want to make sure that not only they're appreciated on the trip, but when they come home, we want friends and families, we want communities. All they know is that friends and family are going to pick them up.
Biggest surprise I ever had.
I think it's one of the best things that's ever happened to him.
My grandkids are all here. Thank you. I can't believe this.
It's too good to be true.
I think it's wonderful. Don't you?
This is the most wonderful thing that has ever happened to me in my 93 years.
My wife! Give me a kiss!
It's just no words for it. It's just wonderful.
I'm so happy.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh man, this is terrific. Thank you all. I salute all of you.
But it makes me realize there's a lot of good people left in this world. It's overwhelming. That's all I can say. It's overwhelming.
For the sailor, the honor flight brought memories of happier times and the knowledge that going to war was worthwhile.
He's very quiet about a lot of things, but many times I could see the tears or the emotion.
I didn't ever think I'd have a chance to see it. I've had a very good, long life. I've seen lots of places, met lots of people, but this was kind of the culminating factor for me.
For the paratrooper, the honor flight forged new bonds of brotherhood, a chance to replace those he lost when his fellow soldiers passed on, and a chance to grow closer to his son.
I met a lot of good guys. I beamed like a young boy, you know.
I think he really enjoyed it more than what he says, you know. He kind of got teared up when he got into the World War II memorial. He was kind of crying and stuff, so I know it kind of brought back a lot of memories for him.
I was really proud of my boy that he could go with me and see all this.
For the lieutenant, the honor flight changed him in ways no one could have predicted. His daughter's key fit the lock, opening the door to memories he'd never shared with anyone. Don Pickett,
Lieutenant Pickett,
responsible for an armored platoon.
50 men.
2 of those men never made it home.
And I see them every night before I go to sleep.
One of those died as Don led his men toward an unmanned German roadblock.
Sergeant, who is point today? Durham, sir. And he pointed to Durham standing there. And I said, okay, Durham, get out there. That's your job. He took just a few steps and was killed. That roadblock was manned.
The second died in an assault on an SS officer training school.
They let us get halfway there and opened up on us. We didn't know where it was coming from. My man who was operating a machine gun just tried to find any spot where it might be coming from, and he was shot and killed immediately.
Memories of command, memories of war, memories of guilt. For the past 70 years, Don says he's spent each and every day since wondering what he could have done differently.
Oh, my memory, it stays with me.
Memories his daughter says she's never heard before.
On this trip, it was almost like he now had permission to talk about it because everybody there had gone through similar situations. They all had trauma, they all had losses, and it was okay now to talk about it.
Memories of war, memories of guilt, a burden Don no longer has to carry alone.
Well, I think he's a lot different. I don't have to prompt him or plead for stories of his experiences in the war. He just will spontaneously share them.
It's a release. After all, I live them every night when I put my head on my pillow.
Lieutenant Pickett, responsible for 50 men and 70 years of guilt. His old uniform still fits, and with the help of Honor Flight, he's now opened the door to a different man.
What?
I love you.
I love you too.
These trips are entirely free for the veterans, whether they served overseas and saw combat or served right here at home. But they're only made available through the generous donations of you, our viewers. If you'd like to sponsor a veteran or help a veteran apply, be sure to head over to utahhonorflight.org and look for the information online. I'm Jed Bowl. Thanks for joining us on our journey. And to our veterans, thanks for your service and your sacrifices in making this world that we live in possible.
still afraid of heights?
Yes.
Yeah.